You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts now.
All right, Black and White Sports supporters, let's talk about Caitlin Clark, and one of my favorite journalists slash sports pundits, and now he's sort of like a in real life sort of pundit, and I'm talking about Jason Whitlock, a guy that worked out of Kansas City for years. I remember watching him on ESPN, 20 years ago. And now he works for the Blaze. Well, he's always saying something. We know Jason Whitlock he's not shy at all, and he loves to say things that will or can upset people, especially people that don't have any common sense. He said something here that I find rather interesting. Part of this I agree with, the other part I don't. And the part I don't agree with is the idea that Caitlin Clark is so popular because she's a little white girl dominating a black sport. I'm actually surprised this came out of Whitlock's mouth, to be honest with you, because he normally will not tie color into something, skin color. He compares it to Tiger Woods. I couldn't have given a rip less what Tiger Woods' color was. I just knew greatness when it was on my television screen. It looks different, all right? Greatness on the golf course looks different. Okay, you could see it at times with Phil Mickelson, too. And that dude was white. I mean, I don't know what else to say. But I will say this. There is a part of this I do agree with, and we'll take a look at it, because I think there is something that is relatable. And it also makes me contend, you take a guy like Jonathan Isaac in the NBA, and I think if Jonathan Isaac, in all honesty, and he's a black man, but in all honesty, if Jonathan Isaac scored 30 points a game, grabbed 8 rebounds, and had 6 assists a game, I think he'd be the most popular player in the NBA right now, because he's a narrative breaker, right? He's not out there. He's not like so many in the NBA. Again, the NBA is a lot like the WNBA. A league full of activists, all right? A league full of guys that have wrapped their arms around Marxism. They've went out there and run their mouth so many times about the police. All of these different things. Jonathan Isaac doesn't do that. He comes across as a regular guy. We know he's a believer. We know he's got a strong religious base and background. And I think people, even with him being more of a, role player, I think that resonates with a lot of people. So here we go. Conservative media pundit Jason Whitlock has offered his thoughts and feelings on why Caitlin Clark is dominating the attention in the basketball world. He believes that her race might have something to do with it. Clark, who was picked first overall in the WNBA draft by the Indiana Fever, left college as one of the greatest scorers in NCAA history. In a segment of his show Fearless, Whitlock shared his thoughts on Clark's dominance in the headlines as having something to do with her race. He believes that Clark is something of an underdog, considering she's a white athlete in a sport that's been dominated by black athletes for decades. Quote, "It's a black sport, and this little girl is dominating. The little white girl is dominating," Whitlock began. Well, it is a league dominated by primarily blacks. We understand that. I'm just not sure that's the reason she's popular. It's like the underdog or something unexpected, the same reason a lot of us fell in love with Tiger Woods in golf. We hadn't seen anybody that looked like him dominate golf. We hadn't seen that kind of dominance, really, especially at that early age. I think that was part of it with Tiger Woods, and he was just so blatantly dominant, and it was a joy to watch. We haven't seen anybody that looks like her dominate basketball to the degree that she was. Not in women's basketball, but Larry Bird certainly did it in the NBA. Whitlock then says Clark, and this is where I think he's right. Okay, this is where I think he's right. More so than race, what he's about to say. Whitlock then says Clark appeals to people because she's heterosexual, has some boyfriend, she went to a Catholic school, and she comes across like she believes in Jesus Christ. He then tried comparing her, I guess, to the South Carolina women's basketball coach Don Staley, who is also a Christian but also advocated for equal rights and participation in sports. Well, she advocated for, she and I talked about this the other day. She says she's a Christian and this and that and the other, but the situation involving, her sort of woke elements, it feels a little hypocritical with Don Staley. I give her credit for not being quiet about her religious beliefs, but it doesn't make a lot of sense either. He said, I give Don Staley credit. I did, Whitlock said. She starts talking about Jesus, and my ears and eyes perked up, and I go, oh, maybe we have something in common. But when you toss in transgenderism, I'm like, well, what God is Don Staley talking about? And her little open hostility towards white people and BYU students and the racism she displays. What God is she talking about? I could not agree with him more on that. But going back to Clark, I think this is the thing, okay? Once again, I talked about the fact that she is a women's basketball player going into a league full of activists, and she is somebody that, look, people as a family unit can get together. They can go to the stadium. You saw it. Families filled up those arenas to watch her play in college. That's the same thing you're starting to see happening in the WNBA. Oh, she's heterosexual. She's got a boyfriend. She's not an activist. She hasn't openly talked about hating America. That's a big deal, right? And I think people appreciate that. I don't want to come out and say it's shut up and play basketball, but that's a little to do with it, is you're not talking about your politics. You want to go out there and just ball out. Now, you're open about your faith, and I think in this day and time, people gravitate towards that because all these other athletes act like they're scared to death of anything to do with faith, and they don't ever talk about it, generally speaking. But people understand. Caitlin Clark is a two-legged, family-friendly product. I don't have to worry about pink hair and purple hair and Brittany Griner and having, you got two girlfriends and I got to explain why the hell somebody's pregnant, yada, 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 to my kids when that's not the kind of house that we're raising, right? And I think that is a big, massive part of her appeal. I do. All right? It's like Tebow, right? Tebow, God, I wish he could have actually played. And there was times he flashed, I get it, but he couldn't play quarterback in the NFL, and I was a big Tebow guy. But I contend, you could have taken all of Tim Tebow's elements and made that dude black, and people would have still loved him. If he was openly vocal about his faith and he was grounded and talked up family and all this kind of stuff, people would have gravitated towards him as well. Let's not get confused. I think the race thing, maybe to a minute section of the population, it's got something to do with it. But I think it's the family-friendly aspect in Caitlin Clark that appeals to people. And it's why it's bringing new eyes to the league. Because, look, there's white players in the WNBA. And they're just as woke and activist-driven as the rest of them. I mean, look, Megan Rapinoe's white. All right? I can't stand her. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I can't stand her. So, you get my point here. So, I think he's half right here, Jason Whitlock. Tell me what you think. Is he right all the way? Is he partially right? Who's right? I don't even think it's worth a debate. But I don't like tying race to anything like this. I think it's done far too much by the left. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Peace. I'm out. Till next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.